Nathan, thanks for taking the chance to sit with me. I really appreciate it. I know we've been talking a lot this weekend so far. On Sunday before you leave here, I want to get a chance to sit down with you. I just wanted to cover some things relating to your work. First of all, the books. The books are always amazing. I'm not gonna lie. Every book. I mean, I just replenished my stock here. Got fresh copies that I haven't destroyed already. So, one of the books I've enjoyed the most is actually the new Ulrika series that you've done. I can't help but notice. I mean, we talked about it earlier, but just some of the themes that you presented in the first Ulrika novel, especially how she's almost William King, having changed her into a vampire, really does present a kind of a rebirth for her. So, could you give us a little explanation about some of the other themes, or you know, maybe a little bit elaboration on that?
Sure. Well, I mean, Bill King at the end of Vampire Slayer turns Ulrika into a vampire, and then never goes back to the character. So I thought this was a perfect opportunity to sort of explore the character more and explore sort of the education of a vampire. The basic idea was you have a woman, an honorable woman in life, who fought monsters in life, and then becomes a monster in death. And how does she deal with that transition? How does she deal internally with that transition? There is of course an overarching adventure story that goes along with it, but what interested me was her sort of the way that she makes, you know, the transitions that she makes.
Right.
And I designed the first series of books as there are 3 books in the series, and I designed them as basically. First book is childhood, second book is teenage rebellion, and the third book is coming to acceptance of adulthood. So it's, you know, it's an arc of sort of maturity, coming to some sort of maturity.
Bloodforge, which is actually sitting out there right now for super early availability, which I was very happy to be able to get my hands on that before June is when it comes out. It's kind of the teenage, almost teenage angsty kind of rebelling against
exactly.
I know I'm going to pronounce it wrong. Lamian sister. And see, in my head,
Lamian sisterhood.
The Lamian sisterhood, which had basically nursed her existence.
Yeah.
I mean, Gabriella von Nacht.
In the first book, Gabriella is her mother, and she helps her learn the ropes of becoming a vampire, teaches her how to feed, teaches her how to not feed too much, all of those things. But by the end of the first book, that sort of mothering has become smothering. It's constricting Ulrika, and she is starting to fight against it. She wants to go out and be her own woman. She thinks she knows everything, so in the second book, she bursts out of the house and she goes off and says, I'm going to have my own adventures. She goes off. And then finds out almost instantly that it's a lot harder than it looks.
Yeah.
There are reasons for all those
the
structure that the Lamians put in their lives.
Cool, that's wonderful. What are some of I just kind of want to touch. We've had a lot of fans come up. What are some of the feedback we've been getting? Some of the stuff that stood out the most to you?
About
in general. Yeah, I'd say about your works in general. I think it might be.
Well, I have a lot of people that come up and they like the Black stuff. And
very classic.
Yeah. Very happy to. I have a lot of people come up and ask me, when is there going to be more Black Lights, which is the first series that I did for Black Library. And I always tell them, I wish I could do more now, but Black Library, they're not the money makers that got to the fields. And I've gotten very positive feedback on the first Ulrika as well. People really seem to enjoy it.
And myself is included in that. I really, I've kind of said this before online and other things like that, that having read so much 40K, when I get a chance to read a Warhammer novel, or or when I pick one off the shelf, it's kind of like that dirty little secret, that guilty little pleasure for me, because I always get so much enjoyment out of it, and I think that enjoyment was there, but times 10 when I read the Ulrika novel. For some reason, it really drew me in. Yeah. I'm really looking forward to getting started on the second.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun writing it. People have really liked the relationship that develops between Ulrika and there's a witch hunter in the book called Friedrich Coleman.
Yes.
And one of the things that I found interesting was that a lot of guys were coming up to me and saying Bloodborne was great, but it was also the first book that I could show my wife that would sort of bring her into the hobby.
Right.
Because it's got a female lead. It's a personal story. It's still got all the blood and the guts and adventure and all that kind of stuff. But
That's awesome.
But it's got a female lead, and it gives wives and girlfriends, female players, something to identify with.
Yeah, and I think some of that has to do also with the current trend in a lot of popular fantasy with the vampires. I mean, this whole surgence, I would call it a resurgence, because I remember reading vampire books when they would scare the living shit out of you. You know what I mean? I mean, Nosferatu was one of the creepiest vampires ever. That's always what I associate to be vampires. That Vlad Dracula, some of the classic vampire rules. It was nice to see almost. It felt like you paid homage to that in a sense.
To a certain extent, Ulrika was an homage to that and a reaction to the more current sort of lighter vampire
Twinkly bullshit
vampires. I wanted to write a blood and guts vampire, a vampire that has some real problems and real strong emotions, but also deals with them the way that a vampire does, which is to tear shit to pieces.
Yes. Yeah. And that was really good to see. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the way the sun just decimates.
You don't go out into the sunlight and twinkle.
And
you go out
and sparkle. You burn, you bubble, you boil, you burst. Pieces come flying off. You know what I mean? That's but then to see also the way they heal from it was very interesting as well. So I don't want to give too much of it away, but it was very. After Bloodforged, I know you said, I believe you said in one of the seminars that you completed the third.
The third one is finished.
Third is finished. What? Maybe can you give us something we can maybe expect from that? A little treat. You know what I mean?
Bloodforged, in Bloodforged, Ulrika goes off and has her wild teenage adventure, and she finds out how difficult the world is. I don't want to give too much away, but basically at the end of Bloodforged, she discovers that Gabriella, her mother, is in trouble back home. And even though she's still doesn't feel 100% about her and doesn't really want to go back and be a child again, she still feels a protective urge to protect the woman who raised her. So in the third book, it's her going back and trying to save Gabriella from a new menace.
Oh, wonderful! That's I'm looking forward to that too now too. Let's see. I had questions from some of the members of Heresy Online and some of my readership, but unfortunately I couldn't get it up on my computer. The internet connection in this place is not working for all of us. But
well, if you want to send stuff later via email, I'll be happy to answer.
Oh, definitely, yeah, I'll be sure to do that. One of the questions I do remember was just kind of your writing habits. One of the smartest questions that stood out was, as a writer, as a freelance professional writer, what are some of the habits that you found that you getting yourself into? What has worked for you, and what have you kind of seen that really doesn't work for you?
Well, there are two things. There are two things that I do that I think are essential, at least for the way that I write. One is I take a lot of time before I actually start writing the first words of the novel to structure, layout, find out who the characters are, and then write a detailed synopsis. I lay stuff out on cards, and I write a scene down, and that is a card, and I build the structure that way. And then once I've got that, I write it into a synopsis. So I have a very strong idea.
Chapter by chapter, almost.
Sometimes chapter by chapter, sometimes just scene by scene.
Right.
But I have a very detailed idea of what the beginning is, what the middle is, what the end is. I always know the ending before I start.
I've always had a habit with my writing too. I love endings so much, and I love to write an ending that is just, it really gets people. Sometimes I find myself writing the endings first, because I guess not necessarily that. Well, I like to know where I'm going with the story. You know what I mean? That there is an end result to the story. And so, in that sense, I spend a lot of time. Thinking about the ending specifically, and so I like pour my heart and soul into that, and then I find it easier to then backfill that, than start it out, because
Yeah, I always I don't write the ending entirely, but I always know what it is.
Right.
I always know what's going to happen.
Pretty definitive.
Yes, yeah. And then knowing where it's starting and knowing where it's ending, I fill in this stuff. The other thing that is very important for me is that I keep a set schedule, and I do a certain number of words a day. A professional writer cannot wait for inspiration to strike. They can't go, oh, it's not working today, so I'm not going to write it.
Right.
So you got to write something no matter what. So I try to, I don't always make my word count, but I try every day to write 2,000 words.
Oh, okay.
And if I can write 2,000 words, and get 100,000 words in 50 days, which is half
of your general deadline, which is what, generally standard 3 months?
3 months.
3 months, 100,000 words, something around those lines.
So 100,000 words get into that way I get to 100,000 words halfway through my deadline, and I can clean up for
That's awesome. I don't want to run too close on time, because I know you got to catch a flight out of here. What's it?
And I've got to eat.
Yeah, right. We got to eat too. Oh yeah, food. I don't know. Is there any future projects we should be aware of that you're working on?
Yes. For Black Library, the next thing that I'm doing is I'm doing a Warhammer, part of the Warhammer Heroes line. I'm doing a Deathmaster Snitch novel.
Wonderful. Skaven. That's awesome.
So that should be fun. And next year, late next year, will be a Godfrey and Felix anthology, which will be a bunch of short stories written by different authors doing their take on Godfrey and Felix. A story at the beginning by me and a story at the end by me. So
awesome. Well, hey, I appreciate you sitting down with me, taking the time. I had a great time this weekend hanging out with you, and just bullshitting the days away. It was a lot of fun. All right, we'll see you later. Thank you. I appreciate it. Yep.